If you have your Bibles and you want to turn to Luke chapter 22 and verse 39. The other day I put a sticker on my car. It's one that I've had for a while now. It says Tetelestai. And I know that many of you here probably have known that because it was a few years ago that they gave them out. It means it is finished. It's a banking term that means paid in full. It's the last words of Jesus on the cross. In such a tumultuous and crazy time, it's been nice that every time I walk up to my car to have a reminder that it is finished.
That's right.
It's been nice to have a reminder that it was finished and still is. That no matter what I do, I can't change what was done on the cross.
Amen.
I can't undo my own salvation. And He still loves me.
That's right.
In verse 39 it says, "And He came out and went, and He was wont to the Mount of Olives, and His disciples also followed Him. And He was at the place, He said unto them, Pray that ye enter not into temptation. And He was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if Thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but Thine be done. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. And he, being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling down to the ground." There's a few different ways of taking this cup passed from me, and that's not what I'm here to preach on today. But I want to think about more the sweat of blood. He was so concerned for our future that he prayed so earnestly that his sweat was as blood. He broke the blood vessels in his head. He was so concerned for us. His concern for us was greater than because he knew what was going to happen. He knew how deeply we needed him, and he knew that he was about to have to leave it to us to find him. He would come searching for us. Each and every day he looks for us, but it's our decision to look back for him and look at him. He knew that in just a few short days, physically, he would not be with us, but spiritually, he would make himself known. His concern for us was so great because he saw what was going on in Atlanta, because he saw what was going on in the world with this virus. He knew everything that was going to happen, and he knew that we needed him so deeply, and he knew that we might turn him away. Some of us have stayed with him, and we have found peace and joy with him.
Amen. That's right.
But a lot in the world are turning him away more than ever. And he knows how earnestly and how deeply we and they need him. He is our daily bread. And that's not just to say that we commune with him daily. That is to say we need him daily. Without your daily bread, you cannot survive. Without him daily, you cannot survive.
Amen. That's right. Amen.
In verse 45 it says, "And when he rose up from prayer, and was come to his disciples, he found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said unto them, Why sleep ye? Rise and pray, lest ye enter into temptation. And while he yet spake, behold, a multitude. He that was called Judas, one of the 12, went before them, and drew near unto Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said unto him, Judas, betrayest thou the Son of Man with a kiss? When they which were about him saw what would follow, they said unto him, Lord, shall we smite them with the sword? Notice how they were sleeping. They weren't praying beforehand. They weren't seeking guidance. They weren't looking for what they should be looking for. Instead, they took the human way out and they found rest in the world, not in the Lord. Whenever we start seeking worldly things, whenever we let our bodies get in the way of our spirits, the end result is violence. Lord, shall we smite him with the sword? And one of them smote the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. Violence is the natural way of the world without God. Without him, the world will descend, and someone has descended into utter and complete chaos.
That's right. Amen.
There is nothing that the world can do other than be in disarray without a guiding light from him.
Amen.
Without us earnestly looking for him, that is what our lives become. were talking about it a minute ago. Jeremiah said that there was a fire shut up in our bones for those of us who are Christians. For those of us that are, we can feel that fire within us. For those that aren't Christians, they feel the fire next to them.
That's
For
right.
their homes are burning. It may not be physically, but they can feel their lives slowly crumbling away. Without a firm foundation, there is nothing to build upon and nothing to stand upon. A good case study of seeing how foundations can make or break a country is the American versus the French Revolution. In the Declaration of Independence, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll paraphrase. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, with certain unalienable rights endowed by their Creator, such are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." We expound upon these a little bit more in the Bill of Rights. We knew from the very beginning, most of our founding fathers knew that that Creator was Jesus, knew that that Creator was the Christian God. And we knew that without Him, there was no order in the world. Our rights came directly from Him and were established and shown through our beating heart and working lungs. Rights don't come from anywhere else. They come from Him. We built upon this and became one of the most prosperous countries in the history of the world. One of the most free countries in the history of the world, where we can gather and commune with one another in a place like this. Though it may not be the sanctuary, it's still the people in the house of God.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's on a basketball court or out in a field, if He is with us, we cannot fall. The French Revolution, on the other hand, completely threw out the church, got rid of it altogether, along with the monarchy. They created what was called the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. What they put above all other things in this new order that they had created was the ability of man to reason. They put man's own mind above God.
God help.
They put God's own creation above its creator. This led to utter and complete chaos. The French Revolution, some say lasted, some about 10 years, because the fighting never really stopped. They just never decided what they were fighting for or on. At one point, one Robespierre went into the church, Notre Dame, and created a new temple on philosophy, putting man's own creation above what God had established. Years later, the fighting ceased, the churches were re-christened, and peace came to France again. We can see that in a time without God, division is naturally going to come. And in a time where separation seems to be the only answer to a virus that goes so easily from person to person, as we're told, division is the natural next step. Whenever we're taken away from one another, we divide from one another. It's hard to connect with one another whenever you can't even see each other. Division is a disease. Division drives pegs and stones and builds walls in between people.
Amen.
The ties that bind people together, love, compassion, and hope, are severed. And the only way to get back what once was there is to tear down these walls.
That's right.
And it's much harder to tear down a wall than it is to never build it in the first place.
That's true.
It takes twice as much strength to tear it down as it did to build it. Because now, not only do you have to tear down what is there, you have to rebuild what was once there. The division in our country runs deep. We can see it in many different ways. But only God can bring together what is divided. Only God can heal the cuts and wounds that each of us feel. Only He can pull out the division that is between us. I started a garden recently, and it's not doing great. Maybe I need to talk to Russell about that. My okra's not growing really well, but watermelon's doing okay. There's a lot of weeds in it. They seem to grow faster than what I'm actually wanting to grow. I couldn't ever get squash to come up because of the weeds. In a time where we've been in solitude for so long, it seems like it's easy for these weeds to grow in our lives as well.
Sure.
This loneliness that we're feeling turns into something else. We seem to fall back on our old ways, on our old crutches. Our strength and our dependence upon the Lord seems to fall back a little bit whenever the government is telling us our every move. But it's time to weed the garden. It's time to get out there with a hoe and get the weeds out of our lives. Pull this sin back out of our lives and find our structure and strength in the Lord. He gave us a roadmap for how we should live. He sent us 33 and a half years of guidance, all written down in this book, and many, many more. He sent his perfect son to live as an example for us. You see, if we were perfect, we wouldn't need God.
Right.
If we were perfect, but by our nature we're not. We're born into imperfectness. There is no way for us to achieve perfection except through him.
That's right.
Dead Poets Society says that we don't write books or music or poetry because it's economical, but because it's beautiful. And I think that this means that it returns us most to what we are human, our imperfections. And our imperfections are what divide us from God, but they're also what most intimately connects us with him. Because even though it's what separates us from him, it's where he does the most work.
That's right.
It's where he grows us the most. It's where he makes us whole. Where we are broken, he heals. Where we fall short, he makes enough. Where we are inadequate, he makes perfect. The most broken part of our lives are where he can show the most. In our relationships, in our daily forthgoings, and in every second of every day. Where we show our humanness, if we'll put that out of the way, he'll show his godliness to a world that needs him. We are a light in the darkness. Darkness cannot drive out light, but light can drive out darkness. It's a whole lot easier to see the light at the end of the tunnel than it is the darkness at the end of the light, because the light will always engulf the darkness. It's more powerful. Our God is more powerful than the evils and the powers that be. In a world that is so ready to give up individuality, we find our hope in an individual relationship with our God. We see ourselves more intimately connected with groups of people than we are our own God. But this group of people, I know, we each have an individual relationship at the basis of our hearts with our Lord. He wants an individual relationship with us. As much as we need him, he wants us.
That's right.
He calls for us and begs for us to come to him because he knows how deeply we need him. He knows how deeply we want him. He knows so much that he was ready to sweat drops of blood. He was so concerned for us that he was willing to give his life so that we could have a better one. In a world where imbalance is balance and everything seems to be turned on its head, he brings order in the chaos and love where there is only hate. I read the other day that the North and South Pole might actually switch positions. And I don't know how much truth that is to it, but my only thought was, that sounds about right for right now. The world's turned up on its head and this might set something straight. But it doesn't take a massive geological change, or political, or even a massive change within oneself, other than following God, to make a major change in the world. By letting our light shine and showing people that we care, they care more. By showing people our value for life grows. By showing people our love for Jesus, that's more contagious than anything on this earth.
Sure it is.
By showing our love, we get love in return. And though this world is a crazy, messed up place right now, I have a faith that's bigger than this world.
Sure.
And I have a God that created this world.
Amen, Brady.
I'd like to leave you with this. John 16:33 says, this is my favorite Bible verse. A short story to this. Dad read this to me whenever I was younger. It was a time in my life whenever I was so worried and stressed out about the future that I did not know what was going to come next. It was a time in my life where I was very scared, very hopeless. But my dad read to me this verse, and Jesus said, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In this world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." He has overcome it all. He will continue to overcome all of our struggles. He has already won. If you don't know the Lord, the only thing that I can tell you is the greatest decision you will ever make is to meet him. It's a relationship that only grows and only helps you. This book has been the greatest guiding path in my life.
Amen.
The people that I have met at church are my deepest and closest family and friends. I know that I can count on them more than anyone. I thank the Lord so much for what he's done in my life. He only brings goodness and light, and he overcomes it all.
Ask everybody to stand to their feet.